We now know that RJ Johnson will be the starting quarterback for FAMU in 2025, but that's really about the only thing that we do know about RJ Johnson. Oh, yeah, it's locked on HBCU. Play my music.
You are Locked On HBCU, your daily podcast covering HBCU sports. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's going on, family? Welcome back to another episode of the Locked On HBCU podcast, your number one daily one-stop shop for everything HBCU athletics, Monday through Friday. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And I, of course, am Darrion Gray, a.k.a. the Mouth of the South, Texas Southern alum and former TSU Herald Sports editor and current site expert at Who Dat Dish and contributing writer at USA Today's Saints Wire. Thank you for going on this journey with me. Make a Locked On HBCU your first listen of the day every day. And remember, just because the mic cuts off does not mean that the journey is over. It just means it's time to follow me on Twitter at South Exclusives. Starts with an S and ends with an S. We'll wrap up today's episode with a two-part. We're going to be taking a look at the 5 things I'm looking most forward to in the HBCU football season in 2025. But we're going to kick this whole thing off with Florida A&M because the Rattlers have their new quarterback, and his name is RJ Johnson. The only problem I have as a media member is that this is about the only thing that I know about RJ Johnson is that he's going to be the starting quarterback for FAMU. I want to stress that this is only my problem as a media member and when it comes to talking about what they're getting from him. When it comes to a football standpoint, I actually think this is very beneficial for the Rattlers. So allow me to be selfish first, and then I'll get into the football aspect of it all. So I would like to come on here and tell you this is what I think RJ Johnson can be. But what am I basing that off of? High school? Right? Because he didn't play at Toledo. So am I basing it off of high school? I thought he had some decent running numbers, decent enough to say he may have some dual threat ability within him. But am I supposed to be basing off of that from 2 years ago? Am I supposed to be basing off what he did in high school? This is not high school. This is college. This is a different ball game. I don't think he was a super dynamic runner to where we're saying he's definitely a dual threat, but he did have some run ability where it wouldn't shock me if he had athleticism in college. But like, the hesitation in my voice isn't because I'm stumbling. The hesitation isn't in my voice because I don't know what I should say. It's because there's not much to base who RJ Johnson is from our standpoint. He didn't play at Toledo, so I don't have any college tape on him. It came down to RJ Johnson versus Jet Petty. And it was interesting because at the end of whatever episode that was that we talked about it, I think it was Wednesday, maybe Thursday, that we talked about it. One of the things that I highlighted is that Petty had all of this experience. Though it was on a JUCO level, Petty had a lot of experience. Is that going to win him the job? Obviously, it didn't. But it was something that we could base off. If experience came down, was a deciding factor, it would go to Petty. But we also said that RJ Johnson has none. I listed probably about a minute and a half talking about the experience of Petty, then took half a minute, if that, to say, well, RJ Johnson didn't play at Toledo, so we don't know what he can be as a college quarterback. All right, now let's talk about how that works in favor for FAMU. Unless Howard was recruiting RJ Johnson out of Toledo, in which they probably would have got some of his tape from practice, things of that nature. Unless they saw that, the only thing they have to go off of is what he did in high school 2 years ago. There's not much that you can do to prepare for a player that has no college experience. And I don't just mean, he only got in there and played 5 snaps. He threw the ball a couple of times. You don't know this man's arm motion. You don't know if he likes to target deep, what part of the field he likes to go to. You have absolutely nothing to really go off of for RJ Johnson. And in my opinion, that's a blessing for FAMU. Because when it comes to the Rattlers, if they don't know what to predict from you, you're always going to be a step ahead. Now, they'll figure it out once we get into the game. That's where the in-game adjustments will come in. Because RJ Johnson doesn't have any experience and Howard's not really going to know what to expect from him in the Orange Blossom Classic, I expect that in-game adjustments will be the most important part for Howard's defense, because you're going to have to adjust to what he does. It doesn't mean that they get God at the beginning of the game, but as you begin to figure out what he wants to do, you will tailor your offense around that. It's just a matter of getting it done, right? So this is really interesting to me. I did want to bring up one comment. I'm trying to sneak a Monday mailbox in here, because if you're an everydayer and you heard yesterday's show, then you know that originally I was going to have my third segment be all about the FAMU quarterback situation. That's where I got my favorite comments this week, was on that video. So I was going to do it. Now, transparency, I recorded these back to back. So the fact that I still don't know what I'm going to do for the Monday mailbox isn't new. You heard this some hours apart, but I recorded it minutes apart. I love peeling back that curtain, right? But when it comes to this, I wanted to read one comment that came from TCar3958. Great content. Oh, man, thank you. 7, talking about the quarterback situation at FAMU. 7 might be a bit much, but I don't mind FAMU bringing in a lot of quarterbacks to compete. Let's face it, they have been a top team in the SWAC since their arrival, and so they will always out-recruit most teams across the board. If they bring in an elite quarterback, they are not just a SWAC problem, but a potential FCS powerhouse. That, to me, is what is laying on the shoulders of RJ Johnson. That, to me, is the expectation that, hey, we need you to be the guy that reclaims our glory. Because last year, I don't think that they were a top SWAC program, right? I don't care where they ranked. Sometimes we have to shorten the list of top teams. The top 2 squads on each side of the division, that doesn't necessarily equate to you being a top team, right? It just doesn't. Sometimes, like, for example, the NFC South is going to have a divisional winner, or they have for the last few years. I don't want to project it just continues this way, but they've had a divisional winner for the last few years that just was not a quality team. Though they were a divisional winner, they were not a top squad. And that's kind of how I looked at FAMU last year, where they may have finished second. I think they may have finished second in the SWAC East, but I did not consider them a top program. I think they had a lot of things to fix, but it starts here. One of the things that I was going back and forth with was whether or not to include FAMU in my top 5 things to watch. It made it a lot easier when I realized that I could just talk about their quarterback situation in segment 1, and that it would actually end up being redundant. But also, that wasn't the deciding factor. I would have done it again. But this is something, to me, that we should watch. This is something that we should monitor. The first couple of games for RJ Johnson will probably be shaking off some rust. If he comes in and he lights it up off the rip, okay, we may be talking about something. And who knows, FAMU versus Howard may end up being our game of the week. I'm still on the fence. I'm leaning towards that, or Howard, or not Howard, I can't remember what the other game I was thinking of right now, but I'm going through a couple. Howard just on my brain. Maybe the fact that I'm thinking about Howard means that I need to make this the game of the week. I love Eden James. I'm looking towards both of these squads trying to reclaim their glory. So I'm not ready to stamp it, but I do think that this is a matchup that we all need to be watching. We all need to be anticipating, and RJ Johnson's debut will be a big part of that. So as we push forward, though, I want to talk about the 5 things that I'm looking forward to. We're going to look at just 2 in segment 2, and then we're going to look at 3 in segment 3. No, I did not set that up on purpose, but you know what? I think it's fitting. So let's talk. So let's continue to talk about this as we continue with Locked On HBCU. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. In August 26th, today is officially FanDuel Futures Day, a brand new holiday for football fans who live for the bold predictions and preseason hunches. Maybe you're feeling good. Maybe you feel like, oh, I know who the dark horse is, whether that's the dark horse in the AFC West. Maybe you think that Pittsburgh is going to come and do it. We're talking so much about Baltimore, talking so much about Cincinnati. Maybe you think that Aaron Rodgers can get it done in Pittsburgh. Maybe you think in the NFC West, this is the year that Kyler Murray finally puts it all together. Who knows? Maybe it's the first year that San Francisco learns how to stay healthy in a while. I don't know. But what I do know is that FanDuel Futures is here for you. Take a flyer on the MVPs, the MVP, a dark horse candidate for a divisional winner, or maybe even a Super Bowl champ. Regardless, visit the FanDuel app today. It's Futures Day, and start planning your future bets now because it's only one day and one day only. FanDuel, play your game. As we continue rolling on today's episode of Locked On HBCU, I appreciate you for making this your first listen of the day every day. For your second listen, make sure you're checking out Locked On NFL. And we have an important request. Locked On wants to hear from you. We've put together a survey to learn more about our listeners and make your favorite podcast even better. I know you typically do that in the comments, letting me know what you want to hear and what you don't want to hear. You've never been shy. But what about a chance to get one of 10 $100 Amazon gift cards? We can do that. Just go to lockedonpodcast.com/survey to get started. Once you enter the survey, you get a chance to win that card. Again, that's lockedonpodcast.com/survey. You can also find the link in the show notes. Thank you for helping us out. But I have 5. That's my number. I don't know if you guys know this. Big 5 alumni. I have 5 things that I'm looking for out of the HBCU season in 2025. And honestly, in the name of roster cuts, which will be going on in a couple of hours from when this episode releases, Tuesday is going to be heavy on the roster cut conversation. In honor of having some roster cuts, I'll tell you what was my hardest cuts from the list. But in segment 2, I'm going to take the easy, low-hanging fruit. Jackson State in their pursuit of a repeat is something that I'm looking forward to. They have the talent to do it. They're returning a lot of their critical players. It's hard to pick against Jackson State, specifically in the SWAC. It's very difficult to do. And I want to look at the history of repeat winners in the SWAC, because over recent history, it's not just uncommon, it's not just not rare. It's actually what typically happens. It's the norm. Not only is it common, it is the norm. So you go all the way back to 2014, because I'm going to exclude Jackson State from last season. They just haven't had a chance to do it yet. But over the last decade, repeats have been the thing to do in the SWAC. Alcorn, 14-15, back-to-back. Grambling, 16-17, back-to-back. Alcorn, 18-19, back-to-back. You had COVID in 2020, cut that out. Alabama A&M won in the spring of 21. That's so weird. I really don't want to count it. And I'm not going to, because why? It's my show. So I'm not going to count that. That is a ring. I'm not going to invalidate it, but it's kind of wonky. And I don't think that not only does it not fit this brand, or this thing that we're talking about, I think there's a good reason on why it doesn't. And I'll talk about that as well. Then you have in 2021, Jackson State comes back again, 2022, Jackson State, 2023, FAMU, and then obviously last year you see Jackson State. So if you take out JSU, who hasn't had an opportunity to repeat, and you take out Alabama A&M, who was in the spring season that was just weird, you've seen repeats on 1, 2, 3, 4 different occasions. So that means 8 out of the last 10 years, you've seen repeats. And one team didn't. You have one team who did not repeat out of the last decade. The reason I don't count Alabama A&M is because the point I'm really making here is that teams that are really good and are championship teams have shown the ability to come back and be championship teams again. But I don't think that Alabama A&M had to go through what other championship teams did. Everybody didn't play. Some games got canceled. It was all weird, okay? When I'm looking at that spring season, I'm not going to invalidate the ring, but it is not on the same level as the fall rings. So, and I'm not going to say, like, this isn't like the Lakers. I don't invalidate that ring. Everybody was in the same position. This was not it. This just wasn't it. So, overall, Jackson State has the offense. They have the defense. They have the quarterback. They have the skill positions. They have the trenches. They have everything that they need to be a top-flight team again. And the history is on their side. That says most times when a team wins, and sometimes you go from Noah Johnson to Felix Harper and nothing changes. So it's not always about everything being constant. But it does feel like recently in the SWAC, the ability to continue a streak of being good. Alcorn was in the single championship game for a half decade straight. They were. Southern was in there 2 years in a row. Boom. 2 years off, 2 years in a row again. So I just think it's very plausible. Now for the other low-hanging fruit, Desean Jackson and Michael Vick. And I think that's highlighted, obviously, by Desean Jackson versus Michael Vick. But at the same time, to me, I just thought about this right now. But to me, Desean Jackson versus Michael Vick is kind of a double entendre in 2025. Because on one hand, we obviously want to see what happens when they face off against each other. We obviously want to see Delaware State versus Norfolk State. That's going to be a game that brings in a large crowd. And I was talking to somebody recently. I really do wonder what's going to be the most represented group at that Desean Jackson Vick game, at that Delaware State versus Norfolk State game. Is it going to be the Hornets? Is it going to be the Spartans? Or is it going to be the Eagles? Because it is in the Philadelphia Eagles Stadium. It is on a week that has no other. Eagles won't be playing. I think they said the Phillies. I don't know. I don't remember who it was, but it's an unattended week, right? So that's going to be the only real thing going on in the city. And those are two beloved individuals. But as much as we want to see what happens when they face each other, we also want to see who has the better season. So when we talk about Desean Jackson versus Michael Vick, yes, a large part of that will be decided by who wins the head-to-head matchup. But if they're 2 games separated in the final record, we're also comparing who has the better season. That will not be determined by one game on Halloween Eve, right? Like that won't be decided by that. I'll also be comparing them to Deion Sanders. That's not fair. I will do it though. I think that they're going to have a much closer season, inaugural season, to Eddie George, who went, 4-7, 2-3 in conference play. So it wasn't great. I think that you're going to see that because North Carolina Central and South Carolina State to me are the cream of the crop. I don't know if they're getting past them, either one of them. I know I have to wait a little bit so I can say that concretely about South Carolina State. But Central, I've seen it. But I think they're going to have an Eddie George type season. The thing about comparing it to Deion is everybody is compared to Deion in that. Just true. That's the natural comparison that you're going to get. Then secondly, they ain't running away from it. They talking about, oh, Big Bro did this, Big Bro did that. He's resourced this, he resourced that. Like they talk about Deion Sanders a decent amount to where I do think the comparison will be natural. Will it be fair? No. Will it be long-term? No. Right? Because you have to understand, Deion went undefeated in his first year, fall season. He went undefeated in his first fall season. No one's expecting that from either one of these guys, but I do think that as much as they're compared to Deion as a person and the role, it's inevitable to talk about what he did versus them. So, but I think Eddie George is a probably much better expectation. 2-3 in conference play, 4-7 overall. But in general, we just want to see how they're going to be, how they're going to maneuver, how are they going to work, and we get to see that for the first time on Thursday. Head coach Michael Vick is in effect. Now I want to push forward and look at the back end, right? The back three, which starts off with South Carolina State trying to reload talent and also Alabama State. And what is going to be their identity? Let's get into all of that as we close out today's episode of Locked On HBCU. Today's episode is brought to you by Rouiet. And listen, guys, you probably heard of Viagra or Cialis, and maybe you even tried them. But if you're looking for something that works beyond the usual pill, it's time to meet Rouiet Ready. Rouiet Ready is a next-gen prescription treatment designed to amplify arousal in the brain and boost blood flow. Boost blood flow. Let's keep it at that. Unlike the usual pills that can take hours, Rouiet's 3-in-1 formula dissolves under your tongue and kicks in fast. I'm talking 15 minutes. Boom, you ready to go for 36 hours. So effects can last for almost a day and a half. Listen, go ahead and head to Rouiet.com/LockedOnCollege and use the code LockedOnCollege to get 15% off today. That's RUGIET.com/LockedOnCollege and use the promo code LockedOnCollege for 15% off. Individual results may vary with prescription treatment. Compounded drugs are permitted to be prescribed under federal law, but are not FDA approved and do not undergo FDA safety, effectiveness, or manufacturing review. Please visit the Rouiet website for full safety information. As we're wrapping up today's episode of Locked On HBCU, I appreciate you for making this your first listen of the day every day, making it all the way to segment 3. And I thank you 2 times for that. Thank you. Thank you. We got our last 3 things that we're looking for out of the 2025 season. And this is where the cuts really did get difficult. So South Carolina State reloading at critical positions is the thing that I'm looking forward to a lot. I was conflicted between that and Eric Hunter's usage because there's probably not a player that I'm looking forward to more than Eric Hunter. Maybe I'll group up players that I'm looking forward to and do them. Probably have to be tomorrow or Thursday. It would have to be tomorrow or Thursday, but maybe I'll do that because there's no players that I'm actually putting here. But the reason I went with South Carolina State instead of Eric Hunter as an individual is because I saw what North Carolina Central did yesterday or Saturday. I saw what they did. That's a problem. At the end of the day, the stakes are higher. If we're talking about North Carolina Central being one of the top dogs, Eric Hunter's usage can stop that because, yes, Morgan is trying to move up and be one of those teams. But right now, I'm looking at Central, South Carolina State. How are they going to replace Jaden Broughton, Ashad Hall, Eric Phoenix, Caden High, Justin Smith-Brown, Ionaj Carter, Aaron Smith? Like, how are you replacing these guys? That's going to be critical. Taste. How are you replacing these players? I'm talking about quarterback, wide receivers, edge rushers. You got defensive backs. I'll give you that. That's for sure. But when it comes to South Carolina State, you're not just missing your top edge rusher. You're missing your first and second. You're not just missing your best wide receiver. You're missing your first and second and third. You're not just missing your quarterback. You're missing the MEAC Offensive Player of the Year. You're not just missing your quarterback. You're missing Eric Phoenix, who was the HBCU player, or excuse me, the MEAC Player of the Year, who was one of the top players in HBCU football. You're missing this. Do I need to go through it again? Because these are things to me that are big deals. You lose an edge rusher, you start questioning how your pass rush is going to be. You lose a wide receiver, you question how your passing game is going to be. You start losing your quarterback, you start questioning how your offense will be. You lose the leader of your defense, you start talking about who's going to be the new leader, who's going to take command, right? We're talking about guys like Aaron Smith, who was invited to the East-West Shrine Bowl. Injury kept him out, and I hate that because I really would have liked to see him play. But this is what we're talking about here. Broughton, Hall, Smith, Taste, Phoenix, High, Smith, Brown, Carter. That's 8 critical players right there off the top of my head. And I'm sure there's somebody that I'm probably forgetting about. And I don't mean to be disrespectful to whoever that may be. But that's 8 critical players that you're losing. South Carolina State's going to have to restock that. They know that. They know that. And I can't wait to see it. I'm not counting them out. But it came to that in Eric Hunter. Then next you have Alabama State looking to take that next step. But more specifically, what will be Alabama State's identity? It came down between that and James Colsey in year 2. I just did FAMU, so it's like, okay, that might be redundant. But then also, I realized that I actually don't care about what James Colsey does in year 2 beyond the literal results, right? Like, I only care about the record, not the process. I don't care how they beat teams. I don't care unless they have a bad loss like the Mississippi Valley State loss that they had. By the way, that game is going to be in Atlanta. I think we will talk about it, maybe. I don't know. I did a whole segment about it, but I want to mention it now. I'm wearing my Atlanta shirt. The season starts in Atlanta. I should have said that on yesterday's episode, which I was also wearing this Atlanta shirt because I do own a washer, but I recorded this right back to back on each other. But anyway, Valley versus FAMU is going to be in Atlanta. That was announced. Tickets are up. I'm very happy about that, actually. But yeah, I don't really care outside of the results when it comes, or the intrigue is not there beyond the results. When it comes to Alabama State, I'm intrigued on what their identity will be, because I feel like we've been looking for the offense to turn up for a long time. And now I've always felt like Andrew Body was going to be the person who did it since he came last year. But now you actually have Body. So let's say the offense turns up, but then I'm looking at the defense like, man, you did just lose Coach James. You did just lose your defensive coordinator. I'm looking at Eddie Robinson like, what you going to do with that defense now? Are you going to stop being a helicopter guy? Are you going to be more hands-on? Are you the same mind? Right? Like there's so many things that come into play here when you're talking about Alabama State. Offense, hopefully, will be more talented. But wouldn't it be something if the year that the offense gets it together, the year the offense at Alabama State really begins to put it together and they become a good scoring offense, they can pass the football. I do like some of the running back they have. I think Holtzclaw should be back and healthy. Wouldn't it be something that the year that they put it all together, the defense falls apart? I'm not saying it's going to happen, but I'm for sure telling you it's a possibility. And it actually would not be shocking. So those were the two hardest cuts for me. It was hard to cut Eric Hunter. It was hard to cut year 2 under James Colsey. Then my last thing is year 1 under Tremaine Jackson, because no one has won the offseason narrative game more than Prairie View A&M. Nobody has, in my opinion, been more front-facing than Tremaine Jackson. Whether it was the way that they were marketing their recruiting class, and now you say, oh, they got the top recruiting class in the SWAC via 24/7. I think that was at one point. Who knows if it's the same now, whatever. But, oh my gosh, look at what they can do. They're recruiting all of these players, and I'm sitting here thinking, oh, y'all got mixtapes. Not for real, but this is how they marketed their recruiting. Y'all got mixtapes. Y'all got Panther flicks. Y'all got it all. Y'all are doing a phenomenal job. You're looking at just boosting your team. I'm starting to see Lionel Mosby. Oh, that's my guy. He's gonna kill me if I don't get his name right. Can't say it's my guy and mess up the name. But I think I did get it. Yeah, I got it. Lionel Mosby Jr. Yeah, come on now. Stop playing with me. Got no yaps. Just kidding. But when it comes to Prairie View, I want to see if they have that quick ascension, because I think Tremaine Jackson was a great hire. I think it was a great hire. But I want to see if all of the talk that came from this offseason, whether it was how we recruit and the rules that we have and all these things and the promotion of it, or this is how we run the program and all these things, I want to see what comes from it. What comes from it when we're on the field? Because I think Tremaine Jackson is a great coach, but I need to see him deliver on all of the things I think he's great at on this level. He did it on a D2 level. Obviously, Chinnisberry shows you can obviously ascend. He's not the only coach to have done it. It's not impossible, but I do need to see Tremaine Jackson do it on this level. So being public facing does not win games. I'll see you on Labor Day Classic. Simple and plain. But those are the things that I'm looking forward to. These are the things I'm looking forward to. What are you? That's something that I could answer if you have the Monday mailbox. Should have asked that earlier. What are you looking forward to this season? I'll start off tomorrow's episode saying that. But in the meantime, in between time, I'm recording this super early, so I don't know what we're going to talk. Oh, we're going to talk about how week 1, you need to avoid the overreactions. That's what we're going to be talking about tomorrow. Shout out to me for planning ahead. In the meantime, in between time, until next time we hear each other, family, take care, stay blessed. I'm going to have myself a very peaceful Monday. Peeling the curtain back. Until next time we hear each other, family, take care, stay blessed. Peace.